Live after a brief moment of panic on my part, where I literally could not find the start broadcast button. Thank you for giving me a heart attack. Google Hangouts. That was great. Okay, so I'm Kurt Elster. I'm an e-commerce consultant with owning ethercycle.com. We're Shopify experts. We've been working exclusively on Shopify for about 2 years and worked on Shopify in addition to other platforms for probably 4, maybe 5 years now, which I enjoy a lot. It is good fun. Let's see. Let me open up my Q&A here. Whoops, my Q&A is disabled. Where is Crowdcast? All right. So in the webinar viewer, there is a option, a big red button, ask a question or suggest a topic. If you would be so kind as to use that to ask any questions, that'd be great, and we can use that. And I will answer any questions that you ask after I go through like 10, 15 minutes talking about positioning for Shopify stores. Let's see. Okay, so when we say positioning, we sort of mean what? This is an incredibly basic branding exercise that everyone I have ever talked to in business, including myself, has struggled with. I've done business coaching for freelancers, for e-commerce people, for online businesses. Everyone struggles with positioning, including myself. I went through it too. So I wanted, that's why I wanted to spend some time talking about positioning and then try and help us work through some positioning with maybe some examples. And it's great because it's not a technical thing. Positioning is something that anyone can do. The only skill you have to have is, being able to construct a sentence. I mean, that's it. That's ultimately all your positioning is. There's no coding involved, no design. There's nothing fancy there. This is really just like our step 0, super basic brand exercise. So, first of all, let's start with why position your business. So, number one, it's that cornerstone. It provides a foundation for your business. And when I say positioning, I mean that tagline that we see on so many websites. So if we say, like my own positioning, my own tagline would be, Kurt Elster is a Shopify expert. So, all right, that's my title, who helps Shopify store owners, my target market, helps them do what? Uncover hidden profits in their stores. So in one succinct sentence, in less than 10 seconds, I could tell you who I am, what I do, for who, and why, like what the net benefit is there. That's all there is to it for positioning. But even though, it's that simple sentence, that formula, I do X for Y to achieve Z. That's essentially the formula there. It is so much harder and so much scarier to do it than just writing a sentence. I mean, I started as a generalist web designer, and I think our positioning then was we make websites for everybody, and that didn't work. It's way too broad. So the big mistake people make with positioning is not going narrow enough, focused enough. Because once you do it, once you have that positioning, it's going to provide the foundation for your business. And that's why I really encourage you, once you have a little bit of experience, to start with it before you're thinking about, your logo and your marketing. Start thinking about your positioning first, because it's going to make all of that easier. It makes business development dramatically easier because 2 things happen. If you can succinctly tell people what it is and what you do and for who and why, then you also know it. So it makes your life easier in terms of creating all your marketing, because you suddenly have this very clear picture of who you are and what you're doing and for whom. And that puts you in a position of strength to be able to stop competing on price, stop competing with Amazon. Because if it's, you just sell random general goods in your Shopify store, then your competitor is Amazon. But if you have positioned yourself in such a way that you are solving a problem, now, it's the same thing. You are selling widgets either way, but now you're an expert at it. Now you're, the go-to authority for selling these widgets. As soon as you have that positioning, and people are going to trust you, they're going to know you for it. It's going to make it easier for them to refer you. It's essentially like having this 1-sentence tagline as a headline on your homepage, and that's really what we're talking about here, is going to supercharge your business development efforts and put you in that position of strength. So really, at the end of the day, the net benefit of positioning is it helps your business grow. And actually for this, I have a wonderful colleague, Philip Morgan, from Philip Morgan Consulting, and I stole as bullet points from his website. He wrote a book called The Positioning Manual. It's focused on development shops, but that's just his positioning. That makes it no less valid for everyone else online with online businesses. And I grabbed bullet points from him. And also I interviewed him for a upcoming episode of the Unofficial Shopify podcast where we'll dig into more positioning stuff. But so it also helps you say no, like by being well positioned. It has this red velvet rope policy where you get rid of customers who are a bad fit. By making it very clear what you do for whom, you're not going to have to deal with these customers who don't get it. If you're in a specific niche. But the fundamental problem with positioning, and the reason we're talking about it, because it seems simple, is that it's really difficult. It creates fear in people. It launches us into this choice paralysis because it's essentially, we're saying, well, there's all this money out there online and we want the whole pie. That's, everybody wants more money. We're running online stores, we're running businesses. We want money. That's okay. Think about it that way. But positioning makes it counterintuitive. So the problem that everyone does is they go way too broad. They say, well, I'll have a much better chance of selling if my target market is everybody. And I'll often, I've even learned not to necessarily ask people right away who their target market is, especially if they're earlier in their business, because they'll say something like, well, it's men and women ages 18 to 50. I'm like, okay, so basically everybody, that's not positioning. And that's, it's not targeting your market. And that's what's scary, is because it's counterintuitive. So, people think, well, if I have a market of 2 million people, I'll make more money than if I have a market of 100,000 or 50,000 or 10,000 people. Well, that's where I need you to know that you're wrong, and it is paradoxical. The inverse is true. I would actually shoot for, a minimum of 10,000 people. If you have 10,000 super engaged, super happy VIP customers, you would be rich. And that's the way to start thinking about it. If you have 10,000 people who are ready to open their wallet and throw money at you because you're the ideal perfect fit for them, that's much better, than having, than trying to beat Amazon at their own game and appeal to everybody. We don't want to do that. And that's how we're going to get our competitive advantage. We're not going to you don't have to compete on price anymore by just being this niche expert. And we'll get to examples so you can see what we're talking about. But the other problem is that it often, as business owners, and I've discovered with e-commerce and Shopify, they're often, you're solopreneurs, bootstrappers, and our businesses are rolled into our self-identity, and I'm no different. So when we think about positioning and we think about changing it, it challenges not just our identity of our business, it challenges our identities as people. And it's really difficult because you have to write it down. It's one thing for me to say, well, I'm 6'2", and I'm not, I'm 6 foot. But if I have to write it down, suddenly now that's scary. I don't want to put it, as soon as I pen it to paper, it seems like it's set in stone. So you need to accept, you're doing, it's going to be easier. You're doing what's best for your business. But the thing that makes it scary is writing it down because it feels like it's set in stone. It absolutely isn't. I rewrote and changed positioning for all of our various websites, like ethercycle.com, websiterescues.com, kurtelster.com. I changed the positioning statements and taglines on those dozens of times before I got them right, before they felt right to me. So, don't be afraid of it, write them out. And I'm going to give you Kyle, write the formula for a positioning statement that I use into the chat window. So you have it. So I solve, X for, well, here, I'll do mine. Kurt Elster is a Shopify expert who helps Shopify store owners uncover hidden profits. So what do I do there? It's, like brand name is title who helps target market solve expensive problem. And we call that the foolproof positioning statement. And you can learn more about it and get it from my colleague Jonathan Stark's website, expensiveproblem.com. Okay. So then, the other issues we get into is, it's mysterious. We've got, and I'm cribbing notes here from Philip Morgan again, but you have loss aversion where you think like, oh, again, well, if I have this tight target market, I'm getting rid of all these other customers. I'm losing them. Well, you never had them. So let's not worry about loss aversion. And then, of course, there's imposter syndrome where once you dial into this very tight space, suddenly you start to realize it makes you sound like you're an authority or an expert. And I often find people will make up reasons and excuses as to why they can't be an expert because it's scary to own that. In my case, I'm saying I'm an e-commerce expert. Well, maybe the first time I said that was scary, but you have to realize when, you are an expert in your space because you live it, especially if you're a solopreneur, this is all you do. And then the other part of that is for you to be an expert and authority, you only have to know 10% more than the person you're talking to. And automatically, like if you could just share with them that 10%, you have wildly enriched their lives. So already, like we're starting to see where having that positioning will make our marketing and content marketing efforts easier. And then the other pushback I get, and I hear a lot with choosing a niche, because that's part of positioning is what's your niche, picking a niche, is that, I'll get, that's too narrow, I'll get bored. No, you won't. You won't get bored with it because when you're focused so well at doing one thing great, you get really good at it. And it just evolves and you iterate your business and you discover new venues and it opens up new opportunities. Okay, so let's run through sort of talking about the foolproof positioning process. How are we going to get there? How are we going to get to this positioning statement? And then after that, we'll look at some examples. And then there are a few questions in the Q&A. Go ahead, keep adding those, and I'll run through those with you guys. So the first step really is to decide who you serve. I've got my friend Paul Jarvis, who runs the creative class. He's got this big email, 16,000 people. It's loaded. All his marketing is loaded with his personality to the point that anyone on his email list knows that he loves rats. And that probably puts him in 1% of the population, right? Not everyone loves rats. But this guy has an absolute affinity for pet rats to the point that like it's a logo. I wouldn't be surprised if the man has rat tattoos and he talks about it. But everyone on his list, 16,000 people, and of course we'd all kill to have an email list with 16,000 people on it, know this, and he's made it part of his personal brand. And he talks about it and calls it finding his rat people. So you need to find your rat people. Think about, the easy way to do it is, you have to let a little bit of yourself into your brand, and people are often scared to do that. They want to be stodgy and impersonal. If you're a solopreneur, you are your business. Own it. Put your voice, put your authentic voice in there. And again, I've got an upcoming podcast with Paul Jarvis where we talk about doing that. But when you have that, think about your single ideal customer. You've got like one VIP customer that you're thrilled to death with. That they email with you, you're back and forth. Maybe you at this point you feel like friends. That's your target market, like that one person. And if you build, it seems counterintuitive, but I would build all your marketing for them, for that one ideal person. And think about it. If you had, let's say you have one best friend. What if all your friends were like that best friend? Wouldn't life be grand? Of course. And we want to do that with our customers. And we can, by tailoring our marketing. Thank you, Mr. Pelker. By tailoring our marketing to, this one VIP person. And then, the only catch-22 there is maybe you haven't started your store yet, or maybe you don't have customers. In which case, hopefully you've chosen a niche or a target that you are personally passionate about. So I would start with, at first at least, yourself as your VIP target. Write your ads for you, because you know that market. It works really well. And then after that, you'll start getting customers. And then once you find, you can iterate it. Nothing is set in stone. Just revise, iterate through it. And then the second problem is, we know who you serve, but then what do you offer your target market? Well, what you offer them, has to revolve around a pain or problem they have. We don't just want to have a marketplace where we say, well, if you like bikes, I sell bike parts. That's easy. That will work. But your you're handicapping yourself. It's going to be difficult. You want to pick a problem or a pain that they have. So there's a local place here. A friend of mine, an ex-engineer owns, they sell recumbent bicycles. So there's these very nerdy bicycles where you lay down, and actually they're quite comfortable. They're very practical. But when he sells them, he doesn't talk about like, oh, I sell recumbent bikes and they're fast. That's not what he does. He says like he has brochures and stuff. He sells it to people who have back and neck pain, because once they have a literal pain that needs solving, and it's someone who, I have a pain, I love my bike, I can't ride my bike. Well, Joe Reichert at Ambling Cycle in wonderful local Niles, Illinois, can solve that for you with a recumbent bicycle. So he sells these bikes by going, by essentially advertising to places where you would find like chiropractors. And I think he has like joint ventures where he's got brochures in chiropractors' offices. A lot of their content marketing talks about, solving neck and back pain on a bike with a recumbent, how to keep riding your bike after a back injury. Like, think about that. That is so counterintuitive and so different than, the big box store who's just saying, well, we sell bikes and they're cheap. He no longer has to compete on price. And in fact, recumbent bicycles are quite expensive, quite a bit more. And it has no effect on his sales. He doesn't even concern himself with prices. That's what's amazing about being an expert in a position and being well positioned, because two things happen. First, they know that that Joe and the recumbent bike will solve their literal pain, and then second, that he's the expert and the authority at it, because by volume of sales, he's one of the biggest in the Midwest. I believe number one or number two. And you can make claims like that and then talk about it in a knowledgeable way, people automatically recognize you as an authority and an expert. And let's load up. All right, I'm going to try and share my screen here so that we can get into a live example, but I'm not 100% that it's going to work, so bear with me a moment. Let's see, settings, cancel. All right. How do I share? Screen share. Got it. Okay. Screen 2. Share. Okay. So let me make sure that's working. Yes. All right. So presently we're looking at everspands.com. And this is a wonderful client of ours. They've been with us about 18 months. I just got married last Saturday, and even Michael DiMartini, who owns the store, attended my wedding. So that's one of those fun things where, through positioning, by trying to find those ideal clients, I found one, and he became my friend. So, I'm speaking from experience here. And it really is a great and powerful thing. But so we initially started with Michael. As you can see, they sell watch straps that specifically fit Rolex. Now, here's what's interesting here. Normally when you buy a watch strap, they're universal just by size, just by what the width is for the watch. He went a step further and said, okay, I'm going to make watch straps that are only for Rolex. In theory, you could jam them on a couple of other watches and they might fit. But he doesn't talk about that because that's not his target market. He only wants to deal with Rolex owners because Rolex, it's a great target market. They clearly have disposable income. They audit, if someone owns a Rolex, they very likely value their watch and they're proud of it. Maybe it's an heirloom, maybe it's a status symbol. And he personally is very passionate about Rolex watches. So he created this wonderful product that's just a replacement strap. It's $200. Initially, it only came in rubber. Now you get rubber or leather and it's advertised as being just for Rolex. So he owns this space now. He's the go-to guy if you want a good aftermarket strap for your Rolex. And it's counterintuitive. Like, he could have said, oh, well, let's just make one great watch strap that fits, that's universal and fits every watch. And that's millions upon millions of watches. Well, no, that would be very difficult to market and you'd have to compete on price. It would just be a race to the bottom. By working in this space, he could have markups anywhere from 4 to 10x. It wouldn't matter because he owns the space. He's the expert here. But when we started, we just made a dangerous assumption. We said their tagline was like replacement aftermarket straps for your Rolex. and nothing more than that. I think I could dig it up. It was in the Kickstarter, and it was a really gruesome positioning statement. It wasn't crisp or snappy. So, we wanted to improve it, and the way we came up with to do it is by asking their customers, and you can absolutely do the same thing. So we want to know, if we really want to dial in our positioning and where we have a target market, we can ask our customers. And in this case, we used a great free tool. There it goes, survey.io. And so you would enter your product name. We'll just call it product name widgets, product type, e-commerce site, product link, acmecorp.com. And do I have to create an app? Oh, I have to create an account. Okay. We're going to make a fake account right now. Rate my survey. Okay. And then it links to the survey. So automatically, the tough part with creating one of these surveys is thinking of the questions. Survey.io does not have any of those options. Just there are 8 questions, take it or leave it. And, first, it asks for referrals, which is nice to know. But then it asks this interesting question. How would you feel if you could no longer use our widgets? Well, if we find that our customers, all say very disappointed and tell us why, that's really telling us what the primary advantage or feature is to our store, product, service, whatever it is. And then when we, next up, we ask them, well, what would you use as alternative? This is going to reveal who our real competitors are. Maybe we think it's another watch strap brand, but maybe in reality, it's something else entirely. And then we get to what is the primary benefit you received from widgets? Well, here's where it gets interesting. So this is where people are going to tell you what the expensive problem or pain is that you solve. We always assumed, that people just didn't want to spend money on a new Rolex watch band. And what we found out was there were really 3 primary reasons that people were buying these straps. Number one, they wanted to customize their watch, because they wanted to make it unique. And maybe, Rolexes look a little stodgy if you're young, they don't quite go with a t-shirt and jeans, but then you throw a rubber strap on it, it does. So we found a lot of number one reason is people viewed it as customizing their watch. And we didn't because we were too close to it. When you're the business owner, you can't see through the forest, through the trees, so you have to ask. And we discovered the primary benefits that people got were they felt they were customizing their watch. So immediately, bam, that's where we got this big headline, customize your Rolex. It's because people told us that's how they viewed it. They were customizing their watch. And they also told us they liked that they didn't have to worry about their original band being scratched, which was an issue. We didn't realize that either. So they were, the steel band on a Rolex can get beat up, and then what are you going to do with it? It's going to kill the resale value on this very expensive watch. So one of the add-ons they came up with was a padded envelope that you can keep your original Rolex bracelet in while you're wearing your Everest band as kind of a, it's very inexpensive to do, but it's a really nice upsell, and it gets that point across that, hey, you're investing in this in the Everest band because it's going to save your stock bracelet on your Rolex. And then we get into the other really most important question. What type of person do you think would benefit most from widgets? What you're really asking people there is, who is my target market? So if someone tells you, when you go through that exercise, they're really telling you how they view themselves. And that is hugely enlightening. So for Everest, we just always assumed, and it's because we never asked. Most people have never asked their customers, these basic questions. Everything you think you know about your customers is probably a guess. And so we asked for Everest, and we found out almost universally they thought of themselves as having an active lifestyle. We assumed they were watch nerds. No, we're watch nerds. They weren't. They saw themselves as having an active lifestyle. They wanted to wear their nice watch, but they didn't want to scratch it up. So they bought these aftermarket straps, which they were proud of because they felt like they were customizing their watch. So we went ahead and we changed some of the marketing and some of the photography. And let me see if I could find that. So let's see. Oh, shoot. I think it's on the rubber. There we go. So we went and we reshot some of our photos. So here, this is literally a photo of me. Here I am being a hand model, and that's me on my mountain bike. And we added the phrase, invisibility meets customization. I never in my wildest dreams would have gone this direction with this product, but the survey told us to. We did it, it doubled sales because we had, now we had really dialed in the positioning on this. It's the same product, same price, same brand. The only thing we've changed is how we positioned it. Now it's a way to customize your watch while preserving the original bracelet because you live an active lifestyle and happen to own a Rolex. That phenomenally changed things for them. I'm reasonably certain, and it's hard to track these things, but we're reasonably certain that this doubled revenue. What was the cost of it? Sending a free survey to an email list, rewriting some copy, and taking some new photos. I mean, it's truly fantastic what positioning could do and did here. So, whoops, I'm going to stop my screen share. All right, I'm back again. Hello. Okay. So that was, Everest is a great example of that because of the, because we did that survey. So let me open up the Q&A and see what we have. And I will run through any Q&A questions if I can find it. Okay, all right, excellent. We have 7 questions here. So how does a generic product reseller create a point of difference around their own brand? This is an excellent and incredibly difficult question. So if you're, it's very broad. So, and I had commented on there, but really, like, if you can't compete with your product, saying you're buying this generic thing and reselling it, like, the first thing I would consider is, hey, maybe, we can, let's say you're buying product by the pallet load on Alibaba. Would it be possible to contact the manufacturer and say, hey, can you do like a one-off custom version for us, where we can, make it unique, make it our own brand, change something about it? Absolutely, they're probably going to do that for you. And then, with that, I would look at adding accessories. So as an example, we had a client who sold a vaporizer, a dry herb vaporizer. So clearly these things were meant for, people smoking marijuana. That's fine. And, but they didn't design, manufacturing, engineering, designing such a thing would be difficult. So they bought it from a manufacturer of Alibaba, and then were able to differentiate by, they just bought enough quantity that the manufacturer was willing to brand it for them. And then they included their own accessories with it, where it had like a carry case, some other nice items with it that other people weren't offering on the same product with a different brand. And they just had a much more upscale packaging and brand. So same product, and all they had done was presented better. Like literally physically, the packaging and the accessories for the product was much better. And the marketing around it was much more professional, where you felt good, you felt like you could trust it. But, barring that, you could immediately compete on service, so offering, just going above and beyond, like offering how-to videos, FAQs, educational content, faster shipping, good like product bundles. Those are all ways to differentiate yourself quickly if you're selling somebody else's product. So a good example would be like B&H Photo. They have to sell, they're really, they have their own brand of camera gear, but let's say they're selling a Canon camera, and they also have to follow Canon's map pricing. So their solution to work around that is they come up with these very clever bundles where it's like, yeah, you could buy your Canon camera wherever, but only B&H Photo will sell you their exclusive Canon photographer starter package, where for the same price, they're going to eat into their margin a little bit, but throw in, like here's a camera bag and here's your compact flash card. So here's everything you need to start shooting today the moment you get your camera. So I would say probably, bundles, service, those are all ways to do that. So I'm going to mark this as answered. All right. Have you ever thought of niching down Shopify owners to an even more specific audience? So we have a freelancer in the group. Start answering. Okay. And I'm concerned that may be backwards. It looks like it's backwards for me. So Jason Pelker, who is a colleague, and I met him at a conference in September, and a delightful man, asks, he's really asking about my business, about my niche. Yeah, absolutely. I had said your niche could be as small as 10,000 people. Shopify store owners is obviously 100,000, 160,000 now store owners. Yes, I have. And I haven't, I don't advertise it necessarily right now, but mostly, my niching down is done through a stricter red velvet row policy, where I'm declining at least half of the people who request to work with us based on, onboarding questions, just trying to find people who are a really good fit. So one way to niche down, it's like, would be by the type of product someone sells or by the type of brand. So you can niche by, industry, pain, platform. Those are all different ways to break up these cross sections. So I'll mark that as done answering. So I assume this was a past question. Will the Shopify strategy be mainly for Shopify users? No. What's interesting about positioning is this is a thing that's universal to all businesses. You need, even whether you're a lawyer, you're offering professional services, or you have a brick and mortar store. I think my rule of thumb, my benchmark test for positioning is, can you answer what it is you do in 10 seconds or less? If you can do that, then your positioning is good. You've got a good start at least. It's probably crisp. So no, that concept should work for anything, right? And how can we do photography that sells and graphics when bootstrapping? So Darlene asks not necessarily. So this isn't necessarily related to positioning, but it's a perfectly valid question. So a lot of people, a big mistake I see people make is when they're selling goods, they will pull photos from somewhere else. They'll grab stock photos, which the issue with stock photos is they look like stock photos. We could tell, people are very astute now. They spend a lot of time online. They can tell when it's a stock photo. It doesn't improve trust. So we don't want to do that. Or they'll pull the photo direct from the manufacturer. That's not great either because it doesn't engender trust. What I would do is hop on Amazon and buy a tent, like a tabletop light box or tent. Should be about $30. There's a bunch of different kits on there. You could find them with like CFL bulbs that go on either side, and then just shoot it with your iPhone. And a modern, like since iPhone 5, probably iPhone 5S and better, those cameras rival any point and shoot you're going to buy, and you're going to save yourself the time. At the same time, professional photographers, not terribly expensive, maybe worth the investment. And I know there's services out there where you can mail them your product. They will shoot your photos, send you the photos, and mail you the product back. But no, I would say, the chances are you own a reasonably, like 2 generations old smartphone. That's a great camera already. And for $30-$40, you could buy a light tent, or even make one. You could find DIY tutorials. The tougher one is graphics. How do you get good graphics? That's where it might be okay to buy stock graphics. People are probably less adept at identifying vector graphics. I buy, oftentimes I'll want to get icons especially if I'm setting up like parallax theme in Shopify. I will grab them from Icon Finder, and you can license them for 99 cents a piece. And it really does make the store look more professional. Otherwise, iStock Photo, Adobe Stock, you can license vector graphics and stuff. The only time it's really difficult is with logos. For logos, I'd say the best bootstrapper option is 99designs.com. It's $300, and you can invite people to design logos for you. And so long as you stay on top of it, where you invite specific designers to your contest, guarantee them that there will be a winner, and give them lots and lots of feedback, you will get a good result out of it. We did one for a book. We have a book coming up next month, e-commerce bootcamp. We designed a logo for that through 99 Designs, and I was very pleased with the results. All right, next question. Here, I'll put this up. What are the best things to have in your homepage? I.e. collections, blog excerpt, Twitter or Instagram feed, new products. All of the above. No, that's not quite true. Let's look at an example. Let's look at Everest and kind of talk through the logic of it a little bit as to why I did it the way I did. So let's see. Screen share, this guy, share. And let's go back to the homepage on Everest. Okay. So, the first thing up at the top, we have free US shipping, a toll-free number, and international shipping. A lot of stores don't offer international shipping because if you've done it, it's a nightmare pain. But they do, so I wouldn't recommend starting out with international shipping. But first thing up here are our trust indicators. We've got free shipping is a great trust indicator. And we know that the number one reason for abandoned carts across any store is unexpected shipping expense. So right away, we have killed that objection while improving trust. And availability is a concern for people. So we put the toll-free number up there immediately because the toll-free number indicates that this is a serious, real business. And if I have a problem, I can get a hold of them. We actually don't expect people to call the number, but we want them to know that they have the option that they could call the number. So right away, I would include, if you have a toll-free number, put it up there. If you offer free shipping, put it up there in that info bar, promo bar, whatever you want to call that thing. And if your theme doesn't have one of these, it's a very quick ad. We know people read in an F pattern, so they start top right. So that's often why, I prefer themes that have the logo on the left and then go straight into the navigation, and we lead with our call to action. So in this case, I'm just trying to get them into my collection listing so that I can have them pick their watch. And this one's kind of a unique scenario in that it does that. But I would do shop by and organize these by popularity. And then I would do so you probably, most people have a slider at this. You notice this one doesn't have a slider next. We know from studies that 89% of people will only ever see the first slide. So I would have a slide that really holds up the mirror, that speaks to your audience, that says yes, this is for me. And then with it have, include in there your positioning statement and your call to action. And you can see we've done that in an incredibly succinct way with Everest, where we've showcased the product. Not necessarily, it used to be like a cool action photo. It was like a watch in water. And then we've got our very succinct customize your Rolex and then a call to action. So that's what I would have, up there on the homepage first. After that, so this is Parallax Theme does this. After that, I would do featured collections, then featured products. And really your featured products should be, excuse me, getting over a cold, sorry. Your featured collections should just, be your top selling collections. And with the holidays coming up, I would consider, making one of those a gift guide, like best gifts under $200, best gifts for, best gifts for men, best gifts for women, break it up. Use, right now, use those featured collections for your gift guides. Will be smart. And then when you do that, set them all to sort by best selling, and then they become self-optimizing where your best selling products go first. I would then always list probably 8 featured products right on the homepage. Here we have 4. But I usually do 8 featured products on the homepage and do a mix. Do 4 are your just best selling products, 4 are your highest profit margin products, and then sort them by best selling. And then as social proof, they have their Instagram feed down here, and then the newsletter and some of this stuff. One common thing I notice on a lot of Shopify stores, I think it's a little weird. Everyone does the credit card logos across the bottom. This I've always found strange because it's 2015. I think at this point everybody gets that you pay online with a credit card, but a lot of people do it. I don't think it hurts, but it's not a big deal. But yeah, so essentially, to answer your question, all of the above, everything you stated. But really, I wouldn't be afraid of having a landing page or having a home page that's too long. I would think of your home page as a landing page. It should have a single purpose, and that's to get people to start browsing your products. Get them further into the store, get them further along. But it has to tell them first, is to hold up the mirror and say, hey, this is who this is for. This is why you're here, and then they'll stay or not, depending. Alrighty, and whoops, let's stop screen sharing. How did you send the survey to customers in your Everest Bands example? Okay, perfectly good question. So what we did for that is, they used Klaviyo, but we used, we just use our whatever email software you have. For Shopify specifically, I really love Klaviyo. Because it integrates incredibly well. But, most people use MailChimp. It's very easy. I personally use Drip just because I like a lot of marketing automation. But just use whatever you're comfortable with to send out a broadcast email. Be that MailChimp or Klaviyo is probably your 2 best choices. And then, actually getting the email list, both of those have apps where they will just automatically pull all your customers who accept marketing from your store. Or if you want to do it, quick and dirty manually, you could just export as a spreadsheet your customers. All right. Let's see. Let's answer the next question. Looks like we got 2 more, and then we'll wrap it up. When viewing the overview, on the online store section, the added to cart conversion does not match up to my abandoned cart stats. For instance, it says currently I have 5 customers added to cart, 4 reached checkout, and 3 purchased. But my abandoned cart is only showing 1. In this case, it should be showing 2. I have seen this happen before. It is imperfect. They're using JavaScript tracking cookies. I have heard all kinds of different and equally plausible explanations. The short answer is I really don't know, but I would encourage you not to get too obsessed with it. At some point, it just becomes like, it really does turn into reading tea leaves if you obsess over your conversion numbers. And let's say those are example numbers, but those would be too small to be statistically significant. Whenever if I look at anyone's new store, I always set the date range to 30 days, just because I want it to be broad. I want to be able to see a statistically significant sample. But no, I don't obsess over that stuff. You'll make yourself crazy. But no, yeah, the short answer is I have seen it too, where some various numbers don't quite add up in Shopify. And then it gets even stranger if you compare them to you do a third-party tracking like Google Analytics, and you start comparing those numbers and they won't quite match up either. So, clearly, these JavaScript tracking widgets play a little fast and loose. But the short answer is I don't know, and don't make yourself crazy with it. All right. What is a UTM campaign is another question. I think I'm going to Google UTM campaign. What are UTM codes and how they do? Okay, so it's just UTM is just referring to tracking codes so that you can assign in the URL. You can add whatever URL. You can add query strings, and that way you could target, make it easier to attribute where that traffic is coming from. So say someone advertised. So Bold Apps sponsored my podcast. And we added a query string on there that records a tag that says that it came from the Shopify podcast. That way they can, if they wanted to, they could literally figure out return on investment using those UTM tags. I believe so. I'm not actually, I'm not real big on setting up Google AdWords campaigns anymore. I mostly do Facebook ads actually, which also supports tags. But okay, I'm going to check. Do we have any other questions? No, it doesn't look like it. And let me check the chat, see if I'm missing anything. Nope, nothing there. Okay, so we've been at it for about 45 minutes. That's all I got. I would encourage you, if you have customers, send out that survey.io. Ask them. You could even make it like a rolling thing where you just put the questions as plain text in as a follow-up as part of your order confirmation email. And then invite people to reply. And then that'll also, build conversations, start relationships. And you'll get a better sense of who your customers are. I do the same thing. I just ask everyone who signs up for the email list, first email, I ask them 2 questions. I said, what's one thing I could help you with? And where do you see yourself in 12 months? Both those things, tell me a lot about people and how I can help them. And fundamentally, I think that's at the core of positioning and of a really strong business is you just need to understand how you're helping people, and try and help people. That's what's important. So, okay, if you have any other questions, feel free, ping me on Twitter. I'm going to be going on my honeymoon to the Caribbean in a few days. So, but we have podcast episodes scheduled. There's a second webinar where we're going to get into usability stuff, conversion rate optimization, which we talked about a little bit. And that link will be going out on Twitter. And if you sign up to my newsletter, fastest place to sign up for the newsletter, of course, is elster.com, which I recently redesigned. I'm proud of it. It's a little crazy. Had fun with it. If you hit view source, there's an Easter egg in there for you developer types. But yeah, okay, I'm going to stop rambling. I'm going to go eat lunch. And if you enjoyed it, email me. Let me know because I like having the validation. And if there's anything else I can help with, just shoot me a question on Twitter or email. And I will see you when I come back from the Caribbean. Goodbye, everyone.